All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Pitch Out. See, we're getting on the roll here, weekly kind of thing here. But
Yeah,
nevertheless, I am Dan Siegel. That's Nik Jarvinen. Last week we did our NL and AL East breakdowns and gave you a little bit of an introduction into our Dynasty League. We'll dive more into that later, as however bad you thought it was last week, it got worse. So we'll dive into that later. We'll give you the NL and AL Central breakdowns here in a few minutes. But first, we need to start with some injury news, one that happened just a couple of hours ago, and that is Mr. Bryce Harper. Mr. I married the Phillies for 13 years, and I'm going to recruit everybody. Took a 96-mile-an-hour fastball to the ankle and crumbled like kibbles and bits. Gabe Kapler is calling it a contusion and that they don't think it's anything serious, but he is off for x-rays. Now, Nick, Harper was 0 for 13 coming into today. He didn't see any live pitching before signing with the Phillies. And I'm always of the belief that when a guy goes this deep into spring training without signing, whether it be a pitcher or a hitter, that year is going to be kind of below standard for that person. You're always going to get off to a slow start because you're always playing catch up. And then you're always kind of, even when you kind of get caught up, you're still always behind the eight ball. I mean, you can there's a track record. I mean, look at Arrieta. Arrieta signed late with the Phillies. How'd that go? I mean, we can just go up and down the list. So I don't have the gaudy expectations for Harper that most people do in his first season anyway. And, if he's going to miss any time with this ankle, opening day is now in jeopardy.
yeah. As far as that goes, it's really the mental side of baseball. I mean, once you get off to that cold start, if you're just focused on, oh man, I'm still hitting 240, then you can't worry about, hey, I'm hitting 360 this month. So I mean, that can run you into trouble. I mean, baseball is a 162 game season. You're in it for 6 months, so you got to keep a good head. And some players really are. They do really let that get in their head. I remember Delman Young was always a second half player, and he even gave an interview about it one time about how he just seems to perform better in the second half. So, I mean, it's just all a mental, way you view things. But the concern for Harper, I don't think it's the injury, because right now we're just looking at a contusion, which probably won't hold him out because we're a little less than 2 weeks away from opening day. I believe it's the 28th. And so we're 13 days away. So if it's just a contusion, he'll have time to heal up. But the fact of the matter is he did not face live pitching. And the 0 for 13 I'm not really concerned about because, like you said, he didn't face live pitching, so that kind of can explain the 0 for 13 to an extent. But the fact of the matter is the first 2-3 weeks of the year he might be playing that catch-up, and, other guys are going to have to step up. But overall, if the Phillies get off to a good start without Harper hitting, it could be good for their team mojo because they're like, oh, man, Harper is in a little bit of a slump start, and we're still doing good. So imagine how good we're going to be when Harper comes back. So it could really work either way for the team. For Harper, obviously, none of this is good news. I mean, you don't want to get hit by a 96-mile-an-hour fastball anywhere, let alone an area with no protection. Just from a baseball player's standpoint, it sucks. And now you're going to miss time when you already needed to catch up with live pitching. So he'll probably sit out the next few days. But hopefully, best-case scenario is he can get some more at-bats in before spring training is over, so that way he can really get a good feel for pitching coming into the year. But yeah, I mean, we're really, really starting to see that with free agents signing later and later in the year. I remember one time Nelson Cruz was like the last big name free agent signing. He did that at the very end of February. So we're just getting more. We're going to see over time as these free agencies play out longer and longer how it really affects the players. We don't really know for sure yet, but I would definitely agree with your theory so far, and it makes rational sense. So
Now I'm going to do this ahead of time because I know somebody's going to tweet at me or bring this up, and they're going to throw JD Martinez at me. JD Martinez signed like late January. It wasn't like the middle of spring training when JD Martinez signed. It was late, but it wasn't this late.
it was weird because JD signed, but like it didn't become official until like the end of February. But I believe he signed like February, like around Valentine's Day. It was a little bit
like when
spring.
But my point is like when spring training started, he was there. Spring training wasn't like we weren't in the like spring training wasn't already rolling when JD showed up.
He was there before games started. That's like
so he's not what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So don't come at me with JD Martinez. Just stop. The other significant injury is Luis Severino, who we talked about in detail last week with the Yankees. Joe Girardi saying Severino at the earliest won't be back until the start of May. So he's out the entire first month. Without Severino, I mean, the Yankees have depth, depth depending on how you view it. They can go Chance Adams, they can go Luis Cessa, whatever. But this was a team that was in on Patrick Corbin before he went to the Nationals. And without Severino at the top, it kind of makes you asking questions. I mean, they weren't real deep behind Severino to begin with. I mean, yeah, you've got Tanaka and you've got CC, but it's, those Tanaka is hit or miss, and CC's not what he was, 5 years ago.
Yeah, and CC is actually questionable for opening day because he had that angioplasty, so we don't know if he's going to be ready. And
Girardi's making it sound like he will be. So we'll see. But
I mean,
when you're a team like the Yankees and you were already in on Corbin well before any of this, why are they not going out and signing a Gio Gonzalez or Dallas Keuchel?
Yeah, I don't understand. Gonzalez has kind of been up and down. Like, he really kind of beats his peripherals sometimes. So, and he's getting older, so a lot of people have that scare about him. But Keuchel, might work. If he can get ground balls, especially. Just on a year deal, but like we said, we don't think Keuchel wants to take a year deal.
No, not a year deal.
I think the Astros are going to come back and re-sign him. I think it's falling right into their lap, and it won't hurt the Astros by any means because they'll save a bunch of money. But the Yankees, they have Domingo Germán, who is a really electric pitcher who, if he can command his stuff, will be really good. So he'll get a little bit of a look. And it looks like Luis Cessa. That's what Roster Resource has them at right now. Because they have CC actually starting on the DL, and Jordan Montgomery's not going to be ready for the beginning of the year just due to Tommy John, and then obviously Severino's out till May. In one sense, it's not good because it's Severino's shoulder. So if it were just something freaky, like he broke a finger or something, it might be like okay or a little bit better because you could almost limit his innings and he'll have a little bit of fuel left, at the end of the year. But obviously, it's not ideal, especially when they're so tightly packed with the Red Sox. The only good thing that's going for them is the Red Sox haven't made any moves, and the Red Sox have a couple weaknesses, I would say. So I mean,
just a couple.
They're just I mean, well, the Red Sox obviously are in trouble, but I mean, the Yankees just don't have. They don't have to. They're just losing a little bit of their depth. Like they kind of have a lot of depth, and it was kind of like when Schwarber went down for the Cubs a few years ago. Like, they kind of didn't miss a beat because Schwarber was almost like a bonus player. Just his bat was good, but they were able to, play Zobrist in left field most of that year, and it worked out. So, I mean, only time will tell. I mean, I don't think the Severino injury is ideal for the Yankees, but even if he were out for the first half of the year, I don't think it would kill them. I think as long as he's ready by the time playoffs come around, I have a lot of confidence in that team, especially in the playoffs.
All right, I don't like your Severino-Schwarber comparison because Schwarber, when he went down, and even if you want to look post of when he's come back, I mean, yeah, Schwarber gives you pop, but, he's not like, it's not like you're losing Chris Bryant or Anthony Rizzo. Severino's the ace of that rotation.
Yeah. And I agree with you, and it's different because you're comparing pitching and hitting too, which I mean, is not something you can really compare in a way like that. So I agree with you. The point I guess I was making is that essentially they have that depth, but they're really starting to tap into it. And of all the guys to go down, Severino is. I don't know if he's the worst because Paxton would be the worst.
You're being too nice here. Severino is worst case scenario for somebody to lose, for you to lose in that rotation. I mean, if you lose a Tanaka or a CC or whatever, okay, you can take that depth and probably fill, if not completely, at least most of. They've got nobody to fill the top of that. I mean, there was a large gap between Severino and the number 2 in that rotation. It's not
Yeah.
like if the
Well,
Nationals.
Paxton. They got Paxton, but if Paxton goes down like he has the last couple of years, James Paxton set a career high with 28 starts last year. Before that, his career high was 24. Before that, his career high was 20. So he's been hurt pretty much every year.
But Paxton's a 2. He's not an ace, and you can't ask him to be an ace because you're begging for that injury history to come back to himself.
Yeah, I think Paxton's super underrated. I like him, but
I like Paxton. Listen, I like Paxton same as I like Aaron Nola. The problem is they're not aces. They're high end 2s.
Yeah.
Okay, but my point is that when you look at a Nationals team, where if they lost Strasburg, it would hurt, but they've still got Corbin, Scherzer. You look at the Mets. If Syndergaard goes down like he has the last couple of years, you've still got DeGrom, Wheeler. If you lose Severino, you've got Paxton and then the cupboard.
Yeah, I mean they definitely don't have as much depth.
Let's put it this way: if he misses the first month and he comes back May and he's ready to go, you're tripping at the start line, but you're okay. You don't because it's the shoulder. The fear is that this is going to linger, and that's what the Yankees can ill afford.
Yeah, I agree with you on that.
The other thing I wanted to get to before we get to the other big news that has come out of MLB this week is that we are 5 days away. I think it's 5. Pretty sure it's the 20th from the season starting. Now, I know most people were thinking, well, no. I mean, I know the season starts early, but it starts March 28th. That's when most teams start. But contrary to popular belief, unless you're a really hardcore fan that's paying attention, MLB actually starts in Tokyo, as the Mariners just took off the other day. Honestly, I completely forgot until I saw them getting on the plane.
Yeah, I didn't forget I knew about it because I haven't visited the Mariners and A's camp, so I've been around the Ichiro story. But they're playing 2 games, but they're playing a series of exhibition games against Yomiuri Giants. I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I've never really said their name. Everybody knows who they are. They're the Yankees of Japan, but I've never taken a Japanese class or anything, so I do apologize because I probably messed that up, and I didn't mean to. Yeah, they're playing the Japanese All-Stars. I mean, so it's a cool trip because Ichiro's probably going to get to end his career there, so that'll be a cool moment. Hopefully, he can get a hit. Yusei Kikuchi gets to make his major league debut in his home country, which is a cool story. I mean, So yeah, but basically they're playing 2 games that count. So that'll be interesting.
I heard Griffey got mobbed at the airport.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. He's a big guy. But they love baseball in Japan. It's a good culture.
Here's the thing.
Appreciate it.
And this is going to roll into what we're going to get to in a second. They're playing 2 games in Tokyo. Okay, and this isn't the first time MLB has done this. They've started seasons in different places. I remember in the late '90s that the Mets even started a year playing. It might even have been in Japan or Tokyo or one or the other.
Yeah,
they don't again. I forgot you remembered because you're around, but MLB isn't exactly throwing this in your face. Hey, we're starting in Tokyo. Marketing. Hey, how's it going?
Well, that'll actually play right into our next topic that we're going to talk about in a minute. But they definitely haven't marketed it, and I think these are good, especially because I'm fairly certain that they're taking just the home games from the A's, and I mean, no offense to the A's fans out there, because I know they do have some diehard fans. The Tigers played them twice in the playoff series. They have some real big diehard fans out there. But they're low in attendance, so they're taking a low attendance team and, putting their home games in Japan. And they are A's home games. So basically, I like the fact that they're going to Japan and making it a worldwide effort. But within America, they're not promoting it or anything. So I'd like to see how that promotion's going in Japan and stuff. Because I believe last year they went on to Mexico City or Puerto Rico. It was Puerto Rico. Mexico City's NFL. I went to Puerto Rico, and the Indians played a game there, and Lindor played. So I like to see that because what we're going to get into in a minute plays into it, but it's a good way to, globalize baseball. But yeah, I'd like to see some more promotion of it. But in a way, one of the games starts at 5:30 in the morning, and the other one starts at Eastern time, which is 2:30 in the morning on the West Coast. They both start at 5:30 in the morning, so it's going to be a tough watch for anybody really in America. So they don't really count those. They don't count for fantasy baseball. So it's just like I just don't think there's a big excitement around it here, other than it might be Ichiro's last game. But that, if I were the MLB standpoint, that's what I'd be marketing. Ichiro.
Well,
just throw that out there.
MLB doesn't market. Oh, by the way, not that that's a problem or anything, but the MLB wants you to watch more. So they came up with all these rule changes that are surely going to make you watch. Like, hey, doesn't it get you pumped up when you hear that the relief pitcher that normally comes in, with a lefty specialist that comes in to get out Bryce Harper and then leaves, now has to face 3 batters at least before he can leave? Doesn't that want to make you watch? Huh? What about when we cut the time in between the innings to 2 minutes? That gets you pumped, right? Right? Or let's take the home run derby, the one thing that people actually somewhat do watch, and we're going to try and entice big names to get in it by offering them $1 million, which for big names who have actually gotten past the service time thing and actually makes money, what is $1 million going to do?
Yeah. All right. So basically, this is a pace of play issue. MLB is living and dying on this pace of play hill. So basically, the concern is people my age. I'm 21 and a little bit younger, high school, college age, a little bit older, a little bit younger. In there, we're not as interested in baseball nowadays as other sports. And the reasoning behind that, which you'd think that the MLB has some sort of survey data or something to back this up, is that people my age complain about pace of play, which is ironic because I don't have exact numbers here, but if you look, I know they've done studies, and a football game only has about 7-8 minutes of actual action in the game, and a baseball game is pretty similar. When the guy hits the ball or a pitch is thrown, there's probably 7 to 8 minutes of that. In a basketball game, it's kind of constant up and down the court, but there's dribbling, and you got to set up a play, you throw the 1 or the 2 up, or whatever, and set up your play. So it's not constant action. Hockey, you could probably say that it's constant action, a hockey game, but hockey's not even a major sport. So out of the big 3, baseball, NBA, and NFL,
hey, as a hockey fan, I resent that.
I mean, yeah. But yeah, basically pace of play is their issue. So they're trying to cut 2 minutes off here, 2 minutes off there, and all this. There used to be games played in way back in the 1900s in less than 2 hours. You know why? Because they didn't have 2-minute commercial breaks. You went out and you threw 3 warm-up pitches, and you were ready. And yeah, I know pitchers have to stay healthy and stuff, but hypothetically, if your pitchers are warmed up in the bullpen, they only probably need 3-4 warm-up pitches, and they're good. I mean, they don't need those extra 3-4. So you can cut that in half. You can cut the breaks in half. I mean, if you have to put ads on the jerseys, they did it in the NBA. Soccer jerseys have ads on them. It's not going to affect sales. I mean, Bryce Harper just broke the record for most sales of a new jersey in 24 hours. He's a baseball player. He did more than an NFL player and an NBA player. So obviously baseball still has some popularity. I think the MLB's issue is marketing. I don't think it has anything to do with pace of play. Because honestly, we get pace of play down and MLB gets their idealized pace of play, and you only have 15 minutes cut off the game, right? I mean, they're not going to cut these games down to an hour and a half when you still have 2 minutes of commercial breaks. So I think MLB's problem is marketing. And a good example of that is today on Twitter, I saw this Twitter ad for RBI Baseball. Now, RBI Baseball is cool, and I know, probably when you were a kid, you played RBI Baseball, but nowadays, RBI Baseball is not going to get the attention of anybody on an Xbox. And guess what MLB The Show is? It's a Sony game, so it's a PlayStation exclusive. I have a PlayStation. There is no game for anybody with an Xbox. My brother is not interested in baseball the least bit. He has an Xbox. If there were a video game for baseball, maybe that would spark his interest. I was talking to my friend today we were talking about how Madden really sparked our interest in football. We didn't really know football outside of our hometown Lions, which God bless us because the Lions are just cursed. But we didn't. I was Peyton Manning and I threw to Marvin Harrison and Reggie Wayne. I didn't know who Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison were before Madden. That got me into football bigger. MLB is just missing all these marketing opportunities. None of their athletes rank in the ESPN Top 100. None of them. Mike Trout is larger than life, and he is not even the most popular baseball player. Bryce Harper definitely is. It's not even a competition. And Mike Trout could be amazing. He could be he could be Ken Griffey Jr. level of popularity, but he's not because it's partly his fault because he doesn't market himself when he plays this humble role, which is cool. And Mike Trout's not a bad guy, and he's a nice guy. He signs autographs before every game. He's a great, role model, but he does not market himself. That's the problem. He does not market himself, and not a lot of these guys do. Bryce Harper is one of the players who do.
All right, hold on, because I agree with you. Trout does not go out of his way to market himself. Okay, but let's stop. Let's stop blaming it on the guys because let's look at Bryce.
It's partly MLB's fault.
It's all MLB's fault. All MLB's fault. Okay, because look at Bryce Harper, the guy who just signed for 13 years and $330 million, who is brass as hell and opens his mouth and says whatever the hell is on it. Okay, and he's done it for years. He was in the nation's capital, and now he's in Philadelphia, two major markets. And what does MLB do to market him? Not a thing. Not a thing.
Of posting him all over their Instagram.
They should be happy. They should be jumping to the ceilings that the jersey sales did what they did the day he signed. Because it shows that there's still some blood pumping in America for baseball somewhere. But can you imagine what they could do if they started marketing Harper and Trout and Lindor and Arenado and just going on and on and on and on? There are so many people that they should just be shoving in front of your face on a TV over and over and over again. And they don't. Yeah. If you don't watch MLB Network, which, guess what? If you're not an MLB fan, you don't go near the damn thing. You don't know who anybody is.
Yeah, exactly. And you might ask, well, how can they market themselves more? Or how could the MLB market them more? See, I think Trout could take some Nike advertisements. That's why I kind of put it on him. He could take some sort of deal and really put himself out there, but he doesn't. But, I mean, in the end, it's MLB's job to market them because that's their product. That's their livelihood. MLB should be marketing them. So I agree. The only point was Trout himself could market himself a little bit better if he wanted to. But how do you market better? Well, your World Series games should not start at 8. They should start at 6, so kids can watch them. And also, their licensings went down. When I was a kid getting into collecting baseball cards, there were 4 baseball card companies. There was Upper Deck, there was Topps, there was Fleer, and there was Don Ross. Only one of those remains, and that's MLB's doing because the Players Association has a deal with Panini right now. But MLB just will not put their things out there. The Funko Pops, we've talked about those. We're both collector nerdy guys, so we collect things.
I was like, I got a shelf behind me.
Stuff. Yeah, MLB was the last one to do those Funko Pops. There's 20 MLB Funko Pops. I know. I saw NFL doing them. You saw they just don't. They don't do enough marketing as far as products. They're not out there enough. They don't have an Xbox game. They don't do this. They don't do that. And on top of it, you might disagree about the times, but there's just certain little things. If they started a little bit earlier and did a little bit of this,
I'm totally with you. I'm totally with you. Here's the thing. Okay, back when our parents grew up, World Series games were in the afternoon, early evening.
And they were a big freaking deal.
Yeah, okay. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock should not be this time of a baseball game. Okay, even if you're on the West Coast, okay, that's still starting 6, 7 o'clock.
Yeah, and
it's just not. It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't.
Okay, and if you're MLB, okay, and if you're going for, especially whether it's AL, so they're always looking for the big market. They're always looking for the Yankees or the Red Sox to get in. So East Coast teams, and you want to start World Series games where people have to stay up till midnight, 1 or 2 a.m. to see how it ends? No.
Yeah, only a diehard fan's going to do that because I know a couple years ago the national championship, the college national championship was on. I had to be up at like 5 in the morning, and I just had to go to sleep I just didn't watch it because I'm not a diehard college football fan. But if it was a Super Bowl or a World Series, I would stay up and watch it. But that's just
but think
much
about
of a
this.
diehard you are.
Think about this.
So,
The NFL is the most popular sport among the major sports right now. Okay?
Yeah.
The Super Bowl is the most watched sporting event of anything we have. And that starts at 6:30. 6:30.
Exactly. That's an hour and a half, and it's a big difference because
and that's with a halftime show that takes
10.
an hour.
Yeah. And it was done by 10:15, and the trophy and everything's presented by 11. If you want to watch the players get interviewed and everything, you're in bed by 11 still. And the problem is that unless they make a drastic change, the pace of play is not going to change. And I just think their focus is wrong because, what? Some people are going to think the pace of play is boring and they're not going to watch baseball. And you know what? You can't force somebody to watch baseball. If they're not interested in baseball, they're not interested in baseball. So be it. But you're not going to get people on the pace of play issue. I just think their focus is completely wrong.
No. Here's the thing. Nobody cares about how many batters a pitcher is facing. Whether or not
ridiculous. We haven't even gotten to that.
Yeah,
how ridiculous that rule is.
Whether or not we shift. How much time is in between it. All of that is nonsense. There are two major things that MLB just continues to not realize. Number one, you're not born or you don't grow up on your own as a baseball fan. It is something that is instilled to you. Okay, your parent, okay, your dad, your mom, okay, whatever. Somebody, their love of baseball got passed down to you. Okay, you probably became a Tigers fan because of your dad. I became a Mets fan because of my dad. I got taught everything Mets-wise because of my dad. Okay, same thing I do with my son. He is a Mets fan because he knows Daddy is a Mets fan. That's how it works. That's how it passes down. You don't wake up one day and go, "Oh, I decided I like baseball and this is my team." Okay, that's the number one problem. Number two, kids today are technology centric and boom, 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 boom.
Patience. Yeah, and I've grown up in both generations because when I was young, the computer wasn't big, but I got to see it come on. So yes. I can tell you the best of both worlds.
Yes, and patience is gone. So they have to integrate that in a way. And their whole, Instagram and Twitter and GIFs, that's nice, but that's not what people want. People want access, okay? And something they've done in spring training, which I think is a great step if they could actually do it during the season, is get more mics on people. I want to know what guys are thinking.
Yeah, I agree.
Pull the curtain back.
Yeah. They did that in the All-Star. They've been doing that in the All-Star game a little bit, and this isn't something that necessarily you've shown your kid because I know he's a little bit younger, but it's Terry Collins audio. Are you kidding? Like that?
Yes.
Any teenager would be like, wow, this type of argument can happen in the middle of a game. Like a manager can blow up. I was at a AAA game in Toledo last year, and Doug Mankiewicz, the former first baseman, he manages Toledo. He blew up on an umpire, and I mean that can be just as exciting as the game sometimes. If you get like a 2-1 game where it's not as exciting, if you see the manager blow up, that is the coolest thing. I was at a game where Lance Berkman got ejected, and Phil Garner threw a chair out on the field, and all my friends were like 8 and 9 at the time. We thought that was the funniest thing ever.
Just think about it. Okay, when SportsCenter does their top 10. Do you see great baseball plays? No. You see some manager blowing up or, taking a base or throwing a fake grenade, using the rosin bag. That's what you see. Pull the curtain back. Let me hear what a catcher's telling his pitcher in a tough spot. Let me hear what a manager is thinking. Let me know what, here's a crazy idea. Let the players show some emotion. Okay?
Yeah. That is almost a culture thing, though.
No, and I get it, but guess what?
I agree.
Let them, but also let's let them police themselves. I don't need the warnings at the start of a game or something. Like everybody's gonna take care of themselves. It's good. Like baseball's been played the same way for 100 years. It hasn't been a problem. It's still not a problem. You're the problem.
Yeah, and I think part of the issue is generation to generation, the popularity of baseball could fluctuate, but you got to integrate things. Times change. I mean, baseball is not the same game. It wasn't even the same game when you were growing up, and or in the 80s and 70s when my parents were growing up,
No.
as it is, as it was
Listen.
when it first got invented. There's implementations and
Listen.
changes that get made. So
70s and 80s were,
these aren't it.
Were gritty, hard-nosed baseball. Okay? Then we had the strike in the early 90s, which kind of killed it for a little bit. That got brought back in the late 90s by chicks digging the long ball. Okay? And we ran with that for a little while. And then we had the steroid scandal, which, for as bad as it was for baseball, it kept them in the news. People knew what baseball was. People were interested. Once that went away, baseball has had a really tough time grasping how to keep themselves relevant.
Yeah, and they can't force these changes. The thing is, these changes.
Yeah, and exactly. They're going the opposite direction of where they need to go. They think that by changing things on the field, it's going to bring in people that aren't paying attention to what's going on the field anyway.
Yeah, nobody's going to be like, 3-batter minimum. I'm into baseball now. Nobody's going to do that.
So let's go through these real quick. Let's go through these real quickly, as we already gone through how stupid this is. Okay, the 3-batter minimum, just stupid. Stupid.
Yeah, it takes strategy out. It takes jobs away from people. What is Tony Sipp going to do next year? Tell me what Tony Sipp's going to do this year. He had a hard enough time finding a job this year. Tony Sipp is a totally serviceable reliever. Totally big league type reliever. He's been around for 10 years. That guy's going to get he's going to be out of a job. And I saw a tweet. There were pitchers who over 125 innings. There were 9 or 10 pitchers that
there was like a dozen guys.
They were all loogies is what we call them in the baseball world. They're left-handed only guys, and they were productive. Ray King, you remember Ray King? I mean, Mike Myers, Clay Rapata played in Detroit, so I remember him. But Clay Rapata had a couple of really good years. Those are just the names I can remember off the top of my head that I saw. They're good guys going to lose their job, and this is going to lead to a strike because one of the rules you're going to come up on is there's a 26th man, which is good. There's going to be a 26th man on the roster, but they eliminated September clubs, which cancels it out because you can save service time now.
I was getting to that. You're skipping ahead.
Yeah, I know. But I'm saying this is leading to a strike. That's my point.
Well,
we're going to get to it in depth in a minute.
We're going to get to that. Calm down. Okay. Another stupid rule. Mound visits are reduced from 6 to 5 and can be reduced to 4 next year. Why? Well, first of all, what are we constituting as a mound visit? Like every time they change a pitcher, are we constituting that as a mound visit?
They're going to have the catcher start to, how the catcher will give signs in an important situation. He'll give signs to his infielder. What's going to happen is they'll start to come up with signs to the pitcher. The catcher will just go out in front of the plate and do it.
Yeah, you can't have a conversation anymore.
The catchers will learn sign language and be able to sign them something to calm down.
We already talked about the commercial break thing that nobody cares.
That's good, actually. That's not a bad rule, but it needs to be cut down more.
I would say it needs to be cut. Well, they can't cut it down more because then they're losing money.
Yeah, I know. That's what I said. I would rather have ads on the jerseys. At that point.
Okay. All right, let's see what we feel about this. All-Star Election Day, in where fans can determine the starting players in the All-Star game with 24-hour votes, and then apparently 3 players from each side, I guess, are going to pick other. I don't even know how this whole thing is working.
I didn't really understand that. I didn't really get to read into it much. I didn't understand if it was okay. So there's 3 players that they pick, like the 3 best players. So just say that, like, for catcher in the NL, like Wilson Contreras, Yasmani Grandal, and Wilson Ramos, or Buster Posey, I don't know, one of those guys are the top 3 catchers. So then do fans get to vote on those guys, or like do fans just vote?
Here's what you need to do, okay? Because basketball has done it, the NHL has done it, and football, I mean, football doesn't really do it, but everybody ends up in the Pro Bowl one way or another anyway because you get named for it and then you don't go and then somebody else goes anyway. Take your 3 top vote getters from each side, AL and NL. Okay, so NL. I'll just I'll come up with 3 randomly. So Harper, Arenado, and whatever.
Machado.
Yeah, whoever.
For baseman too, but whatever.
Whatever. Okay?
DH. They're gonna have a DH in that game.
Whatever. Then those 3 can then you have a pool of all-star players. Okay, like you would normally have, but then you can draft. It's not ALNL anymore. Just draft. Okay, we've taken the world.
counts for anything.
I was going to say, we've taken the World Series thing out of it. Thank God.
Which is good. Yeah.
Okay, we've put in a new rule now where we don't have to worry about the whole, oh, God, if it goes to extra innings, what are we going to do? Okay, because they've done the whole, we're going to start a guy at second base thing, which, okay, it's the All-Star game.
All-Star game, not in real life.
It's the All-Star game. I don't care. Don't ever do it in a real game.
Yeah.
But, again, get people to watch. Get people excited. A draft with interaction and things like that. People would watch that. People went nuts. People went nuts last year when the NBA had their first draft and it wasn't on TV.
Yeah. Yeah, and this year they were making jokes with Giannis and LeBron and Charles Barkley were on there. I mean, the MLB could do so many things to get themselves on TV. ESPN would definitely cover that draft because they're in cahoots with MLB Network now because they caught baseball tonight. So I think they would hold that draft because ESPN has the rights to the All-Star, the Home Run Derby. I don't think they have the rights to the All-Star game. They don't. Fox does. But, ESPN does the Home Run Derby and the Celebrity Softball game, so they'll want to show that show. They already do the selection show. I mean, there's just so many ways they could get on TV. The draft could be a lot bigger of a deal. I mean, because the MLB draft isn't as big a deal as the NBA or NFL draft, and that might be because, guys don't get on. But they don't make any of these. They don't make it. The All-Star game, the draft, none of these events are like a big deal other than outside of. They don't do anything to promote it other than the actual event. The draft just happens. The All-Star game just happens. So that's what I'm saying.
Why is this a rule? Position players are prohibited from pitching in games that don't go into extra innings unless a team is ahead or behind by at least 8 runs. Why does this have to be a rule?
Yeah, I don't understand that because not in a lot of situations does that even happen. Maybe if a team's really fatigued and they're down 6 runs, they'll be like, okay, Anthony Rizzo, you're going to get a chance to pitch because there's probably no way we're going to win this game. I just think it's to keep competitiveness in it, but I mean, if they want to keep competitiveness in it, make a minimum salary that each team has to keep up, and take steps to not do tanking. The Tigers, I want them to tank. It makes sense for them to tank. I wanted them to lose games last year, even though I'm rooting for them because it means a higher draft pick. But if there's a draft lottery, the Tigers might end up with the 10th pick, and they lost 98 games last year, and they could end up with the 10th pick instead of the 6th pick, which would be a huge, huge, huge difference. So, I mean, if you want competitiveness, make them sign free agents. Adam Jones should not have been a free agent until the middle of March. I mean, did you forget my outrage about Adam Jones last week? Why is Dallas Keuchel still a free agent? Dallas Keuchel might not be an ace pitcher at this point in his career, but he could definitely help any team in baseball.
Craig Kimbrell is still a free agent.
Make competitiveness. Do a draft lottery and make teams have a minimum salary.
Okay.
And it'll help a lot of things.
We don't call it the DL anymore. We call it the IL, the injured list. Okay, so we changed the name, but we went back to the old rule. Remember, it used to be 5 years ago. It was the 15-day DL. Then we changed it to the 10-day DL. Now we've changed it to the 15-day IL. Okay, so everybody got us?
No sense. And it makes no sense because that's going to discourage teams from using it, and it's going to give more of a problem because you're going to keep injured. Guys are going to get hurt more. The players are going to be up in cahoots about that. And I don't know if this is in the article, but they also made the time. So if you're at the major leagues, say you're I know Drew Smith got hurt for your Mets, but just say you're Drew Smith. He was a borderline bullpen guy. They call up Drew Smith. They send him back down. Now he has to wait. Instead of the old 10 days, he has to wait 15 days to come back up. Where are they? They're not doing themselves any favors with the Players Association. They're just doing things that are going to lead to strikes. So I don't understand. If they're rushing to do all this to avoid a strike, they're not focusing on the important issues, which is Vladimir Guerrero being down for the first 2 weeks so they can get an extra year of control when that could easily be fixed. Just make it if a guy comes up before June 30th that he can be a free agent after 5.5 years of control. That's all you have to do to fix it. Because then teams have no incentive. Because if they keep him down until July, they're an idiot.
All right. Well,
there's just no way.
Okay, so to clarify your All-Star question, apparently the fans as in us, we get 24 hours to vote on each position. And then, wait, hold on. Fans and players will still vote in the additional way, but the top 3 fans will be. Yeah, see, this doesn't even make sense. I lied. Basically, I don't know if they're giving us 3 players, because it says we top 3 finishers in each position on a one-day election ballot where the fans will determine the starting player. So who's picking the 3? Are we picking the...
I don't know. Are they like picked? I mean, if they're picked by like peers or something, I can get behind that, because you're gonna, I mean, sometimes fans get it wrong. So at least if there's 3 guys, they can get the deserving top 3 players in there. But then, how is a team like the Marlins gonna have any representation? Nobody's gonna get in that for the Marlins, because nobody's good enough.
You know what would have been a rule I could have got behind? Not every team needs representation at the All-Star game. That's a rule I could have got behind.
That'd be another thing that would it would really be against tanking, because if a team doesn't have a deserving All-Star, they lose that exposure, and that's fancy. As from an owner's perspective, it would be bad. I think.
So let's get to the final rule, okay? And I'm going to read the 2 halves of this before you start going nuts, okay? So next year, all teams will have a 28-man roster in September. Before that, the first 5 months, the roster will be 26. Okay, that obviously, as you talked about, eliminates what we normally get in September, the expanded rosters where you can call up a bunch of guys and let them get exposure. Now, committees will be appointed by the commissioner's office and the union to formally discuss the game's economic concerns. They will study ways to make the free agent market more active. They will discuss eliminating the incentive for teams for purposely losing to gain top draft picks, and they will explore efforts to prevent teams from manipulating service time that delays their top prospects from being called up to the majors. That last sentence, the explore efforts to prevent teams from manipulating service time that delays their top prospects from being called up to the majors. I'm sorry, does this rule change in which you're shortening the roster kind of go hand in hand with allowing them to also manipulate the service time?
Yeah, that's my point. And the thing is people argue, well, in September, some team can have 38 guys and some team can have 20, 28. And it's like, yeah, but the teams have the option to bring up 40 guys. That's their choice. Bringing up all 40 guys if you're a contending team doesn't really make sense. You just want to bring up a couple extra relievers, your third catcher, maybe if your top prospect's on the roster for him to, get a little bit of experience, a taste of pennant fever. So you want to have your roster at maybe 32, 33 players. If you're a tanking, or you're a team that's in last place in September, I won't even use the word tanking, because let's just say these anti-tanking rules go into effect. If you're a team that's in last place, though, and you really know you're not going to get anything, and it's September, you want to bring up all the guys on your 40-man roster because you want to see what all of them have to offer you. You want to get some of them at bats. You want to see what, you want to work with them. You want to see what they do in BP. You want to work with them. And so it really is fair because yeah, one team might have 38 guys, one team might have 31, but it makes sense for each team to do that, and they both have the same option to bring up the same amount of players. So I think that's just stupid. And the 28 guys for a whole month is a huge deal. Yeah, you're getting one guy on 30 teams, an extra job for the whole year, but you're taking away service time from 12 guys up to 12 guys on 30 teams for a whole month, which is a sixth of the year. So I mean, it really almost outweighs it because it's 12 guys, and yeah, it's only for a sixth of the season, but it's 12 guys, so it gets magnified times 12 versus just the one guy for the whole entire year. So I don't know. I mean, I think that helps manipulate service time, like you're saying. And yeah, the 26-man makes sense and stuff. And I think they're going to require only 13 pitchers be.
Yeah. I think that. Yeah, I don't know if they've come up with the number yet.
Too. That's gonna promote injuries, and then you got a 15-day waiting time, so guys aren't going to be able to come up and down as freely. So it takes strategy out of the game. The manager is not even going to have anything to do other than the lineups because they want to take the shift out of the game too. They're not going to have any. I don't understand what you're doing. I just don't understand what you're doing. You're taking all the things that are changing the game and making it interesting because people like me are interested in sabermetrics and mixing it with the game we love. And you're taking that away and you're making it into some bland one-size-fits-all game, and then you're screwing over the players in the process who are going to strike and piss everybody off because because it's hard to feel bad in a millionaires versus billionaires situation. I mean, I understand what the players are going for, and I support. I mean, you don't want to be screwed over if you don't think you're getting paid enough, or you're getting basically blacklisted. So I understand why they'd strike, but none of these rules help, do they? I mean, I'm missing something.
Okay, real quick. One, as far as discussing the economic concerns and a way to make free agency more active. If you want to do that, just take away the luxury tax.
Yeah.
The luxury tax is now a non-defined salary cap. Okay?
Yeah.
And you're seeing big market teams, like the Yankees, who used to just buy everybody,
Go under to avoid
now be so concerned with it that guys that they would normally be in on, they're not. Okay, and
the Nats right now with Kimbrel, they could sign Kimbrel, but they're not going to go over that tax, even though they could win that division and they need bullpen help. So it makes perfect sense. And you got the most established reliever out there waiting for you. I mean, it doesn't make any more sense in the world. It's not even a signing that probably would. It's a no risk signing, and they're just letting him stay there. It's just ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, but yeah. So
that's that. Yeah, you got to get rid of the compensation.
And the one reason why they the one thing with these rule changes is they basically, by signing off on this allows them to talk about a new CBA before they were technically allowed to. I don't think the extended time will help them at all, but.
Yeah, and Tony Clark definitely got forced in some of this. I like Tony Clark, and he was a fun player to watch, but I'm not sure that he is the best leader for them at times. Sometimes it just seems like the players get screwed over. But I mean, as an owner, I mean, you can understand both sides because they both want what they want, and it makes financial sense for each of them, which is ultimately at the end of the day the most important thing to anybody, no matter what you say. I mean, people want to make money. That's what everybody in the world gets up to do every morning. They want to, make enough money, and it makes financial sense. So you got to find a middle ground. But I don't think any of this is. I think the intent might be good, but I just think they're going about it their own way. So,
all right,
nothing made sense.
All right, so we killed MLB. We killed MLB. We killed the rule changes. So let's get into our breakdowns here. AL and NL Central. I know you're all hopped up for the AL Central, so we'll start with the NL Central first.
Okay.
And let's start with the Cardinals. The Cardinals, I think, made the biggest splash in the division. Obviously, they made the trade for Goldschmidt, and they went out and got Andrew Miller for the bullpen. Whether or not Miller will be a closer remains to be seen. They've also got the young flamethrower Jordan Hicks out there. He could potentially be the closer with Miller being the setup man. We'll see how that all plays out. The question is, the Cardinals still have their old core there. They've still got Yachty behind the plate. They've still got, Matt Carpenter. They made the deal for Ozuna last year. The rotation, I think, still is the question mark because, they traded Weaver in the deal to get Goldschmidt. They've got Flaherty and Mikolas at the top, which is a nice 1-2. You don't, Waka's been up and down. You don't know what you're going to get from him. Wainwright's at the end of the road. The rotation is, after that 1-2, it's iffy. So are Goldschmidt and Miller enough to put them atop of this division?
Well, I thought the Goldschmidt deal was pretty much one of the most underrated moves of the offseason. They did have to give up Weaver and Kelly, which are, assets. But Kelly, he's getting older. He wasn't really going to have an opportunity with them. So, they have Andrew Nizer down in the minors, and he's kind of their new catcher of the future. So it made sense to get rid of him. Andy Young could be decent, but they got rid of him. So basically, they were just giving up that extra depth with Luke Weaver. They got Goldschmidt, and they have first dibs at him to sign him to an extension too. I really like that move. Goldschmidt, you know what you're getting. He's one of the most consistent first basemen. He's one of the few elite first basemen that are left. It's not the position it once was, and he's still at the top of the, barrel for that position. He's not really aging bad or anything. And it really solidifies the middle of their order. Marcell Ozuna kind of had a down year last year, but Goldschmidt, Ozuna, and then Paul DeJong has major power. So those three together in the middle of the order, you got three really good power hitters and guys who can hit for decent average. So, I mean, I think their order is very much all set, and you got Matt Carpenter at the top. Their rotation scares me a little bit, and I think that's ultimately going to be the reason they don't win the division, because I think Mikolas had a good first year, and now his peripherals look decent. But I just can't trust him fully yet because he bounced around, and I just expect a little bit of regression. And Flaherty walked too many hitters. I think Flaherty's a solid number 2, but behind that, I think Flaherty will be solid. Mikolas will take a step back, but be okay. But I mean, I just don't think altogether the rotation is going to be one of the top rotations. And I think those two taking a step back.
And here's the thing with Mikolas. You know, we said it was his first year. And, you know, you think, oh, you know, guy on his first year with that kind of year, you know, oh, wow, that's really a foundation. He's old. He's like late 20s.
Yeah, he's old. I can get the exact date.
I think he's 28 already.
Yeah, he is 30.
I was being nice. He's the same age as Jacob deGrom.
He was a relief pitcher for the Padres, and then the Rangers tried to use him as a starter, and that just did not work at all. He had a 6.44 ERA. Last year, he had a really good year, but he actually did lead the league in hits given up. He gave up 186 hits. He was really good at limiting the free pass, though, so it kept him down. But honestly, I still expect him to take a step back because I just see hitters being able to figure him out a little bit.
The only way this Cardinals rotation can really get the Cardinals into the conversation is if they find Michael Wacha of 3 years ago. Plain and simple.
Yeah, Wacha is really good, and he's just inconsistent. But when he is on, that guy is their best pitcher. And Flaherty has a chance to be that, but Flaherty, he had some hiccups last year, and you don't really know about a sophomore slump. I think Flaherty's really promising, but you don't know that Flaherty's going to repeat last year or be an ace this year. You certainly cannot, with 100% certainty, say he will be. And I think those two will be above-average starters, even if they take a step back. But behind that, you got Wainwright, who was not good at all last year. And, I mean, there's just a lot of questions with that rotation. So I agree.
All right.
I see them as a second-place team, though.
I might even put them third. I might.
Yeah. I think the Brewers... We'll get into the Brewers.
I was going to say, we're going to go right to them now. Let's go with the Brewers who, you know, people forget, actually won this division last year. You know, Christian Yelich had the MVP year. They got Lorenzo Cain. They really redid everything. You know, Josh Hader became the, you know, Andrew Miller of last year almost, the guy that nobody wanted to face. You know, in typical Brewer fashion, they came up short in the playoffs, but nevertheless, the Brew Crew did what they needed to do. My issue with the Brewers, you know, and I feel like we just kind of said this with the Cardinals, is the rotation. They've got a lot of guys that are okay, but, you know, if here's another team that, like, if you're, you know, and the Brewers, okay, I'll give them a little bit of a pass because they're a smaller market team, so they're not going to go out and throw out the big contracts, you know, all over the field. You know, the Lorenzo Cain thing last year kind of came as a little bit of a surprise. But, you know, usually when they go and make a splash, especially with an arm, it's like a trade deadline thing. You know, like they got CC, you know, a few years back and things like that. But if there's ever a team that was screaming for an ace, the Brewers are it.
Yeah, and it makes too much sense for them to trade for a guy like Madison Bumgarner at the trading deadline, so we'll have to see what that goes. I think a guy who could really see step up this year for them is Corbin Burns. He's had a lot of hype behind him, and he was a top 100 prospect, and he seems pretty promising. So if he can step into that rotation, do good, and then they need Jimmy Nelson to come back and be good. They have Zach Davies, who's a good number 5 starter. He got insanely lucky a few years ago and won like 18 games, even though he's just nothing more than a 5 starter, but he's a solid one at that. Thing about the Brewers, all around, I think they got a little bit lucky last year. I don't think Christian Yelich is going to have an OPS of almost 1,300 in the second half again this year. I think I like Yelich, and I think he is a top player, but I think he's getting overrated almost a little bit. He's going in the top 10 of fantasy drafts, or I'd put him more in that second round range. He's just more of a second round pick to me. I don't think he's going to repeat that. He's not going to hit 35 home runs every year. he's got a good swing, and he's a good hitter, and he is an impact hitter who's a good number 3 hitter. But I mean, he is gonna not repeat his year fully. And then you got guys like Lorenzo Cain who are getting a little bit older. Cain's aging pretty well, but you never know when he'll just start to take. He's gonna start to slowly take steps back. I mean, I like the Yasmani Grandal signing a lot. It was a good 1-year deal for them. I think he's going to be a good bat in the Moustakas deal. I think they're going for it, but they need that pitcher, and I think you'll see them trade for Madison Bumgarner at the trade deadline. But right now, I just have them as a third-place team because they have a lot of depth and stuff, but they got lucky last year in a lot of ways. They had a lot of things, go their way, and a lot of players had career years, and you can't expect that every year. So, I mean, they might take a little bit of a step back this year. They're going to be an above-average team, so it's really going to come down to do they make the right moves. And if they trade for Madison Bumgarner, they could get pushed into the playoffs. Right now, they don't have them in the playoffs. But, I mean, it makes all too much sense to trade for Madison Bumgarner at the trading deadline. Does it not?
No, I agree with you. I was just saying, I was a little surprised the Giants didn't deal Bumgarner in the offseason. I mean, we'll get to that when we do the the next show. But yeah, I just don't see any way Bumgarner finishes the year as a Giant.
Yeah, and I mean, at the deadline, they probably won't even have to give up Keston Huria. So, I mean, you're probably looking at a different deal at that point for them, and I think it'll be more affordable, and they'll do it if they're in it.
Everything went right. Everything went right. There we go. Went right for the Brewers last year. Everything went wrong for the Cubs last year. Chris Bryant got hurt. Yu Darvish got hurt. I mean, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Ian Happ fell off planet Earth.
Addison Russell made some bad decisions.
Addison Russell had that whole, Bobby Brown situation. So it was just a whole lot of bad things for the Cubs. New year, Cubs seem like a bounce-back candidate, even though the wonderful Pacoda predictions don't see that.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason why the Cubs aren't what we thought they were last year.
I agree with you 100%. I have them in first. I'll let you talk, though.
I'm just saying, for everything that went wrong, even if half of them bounce back right, the Cubs are the best team. Darvish has, I'm not banking on Yu Darvish to be Yu Darvish of 5 years ago when he was striking out 250 guys with the Texas Rangers. But he's not going to be as bad. He's not going to be as bad as he was last year. He's looked better in spring training. Chris Bryant is not going to be that bad as he was last year. Ian Happ, I'm not expecting to blow up, but he'll be productive. People are crapping on Ben Zobrist because he's over 35. He still hit over 300 last year, and you can still move him around. They've got pieces all over the place. I mean, Hayward is complimentary at this point.
Yeah, he's like a defensive specialist that they overpaid. But, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I think Bryant, it's concerning that his shoulder was hurt, but, he had a whole offseason to heal it, and he's going to get that loft back in his swing, and he's going to hit way more than, I think he ended up with, around 15 home runs.
I mean,
that guy's a 30 home run threat.
You want to point to a deficiency with the Cubs, it's the bullpen.
Yeah, and I think their bullpen looks better this year than it did this time last year, honestly. They went out, and I know at the end of last year they got Kinsler. I'm going to look at their roster resources so I don't forget a name. I've always liked Carl Edwards. He's for an inning he can let it all fly, out there, and he's that type of pitcher. He's a little bit, kind of small to be a starter, but he fits real well in the bullpen. And, Morrow's hurt, so Pedro Strup's going to have to step into closing. They don't have a de facto closer, which is a little bit concerning, but they have guys with experience. Steve Cishek, he's been a closer. Kinsler has been a closer. They've got some guys with experience out there, so it's not going to be, anything too scary or crazy for them. I fully expect them to be able to, field a competitive bullpen. Dwayne Underwood Jr. is a guy I'd watch to make an impact in their bullpen this year. But basically, they went out and they got Daniel Descalso to replace LaStella, and their bench looks really good this year. They got Caratini as a backup catcher who is a little more offensive-minded. David Bodie, who impressed last year, he's their versatile guy. Descalso and Alberto Mora, who hit really well last year. He's got speed and he plays good defense. And then, their lineup's really good. And then when Addison Russell comes back, Addison Russell, he's still super young. All the off the field stuff aside, because I'm not comment on any of the off the field stuff, but he's gonna come back and he's gonna play, and he's a good defender already, and he is only 25 years old. He could still break out offensively, and he's got power, and coming up that bat was really, really well, highly touted. Wilson Contreras had a bad year last year. He's going to have a better year. Kyle Schwarber, he still hits 30 home runs, flies under the radar. Javier Baez is the one guy who probably will take a step back on their team, but he's still going to be an impact player on defense. He makes the crazy plays. He gives that team energy. You can play him anywhere. I mean, even if he takes a step back, he's still going to be valuable. Anthony Rizzo and Chris Bryant, we're not going to have the slump that Rizzo went through and the injury to Bryant. They're going to be, that deadly duo they were. Zobrist is a great table setter at this point in his career. He doesn't have as much power, but Zobrist could still, get on base for those guys. Joe Madden is a really good. He might not be the best strategic manager, but he can really handle a clubhouse. He's proven that time in, time out. I mean, there's just a lot for this team to look forward to, and I think they're fully going to bounce back. And another thing I want to throw in, and then I'm done. You can say whatever you want. The PECOTA projections, I feel like they're a baseline. Like on average of this, they win 80 games. They could win, 90 games though. PECOTA hates teams sometimes just because of certain things, and I mean it can't measure everything. It's a really good projection system, but the PECOTA projections are always a little bit on the downside. I think they're a little more pessimistic. If you look, the PECOTA projections never really have guys finishing with more than like 38 home runs to lead the league, and every year somebody hits 40. So I just think when it comes to that, PECOTA's a little more pessimistic. So, I wouldn't. They still have them for 80 wins. So it's not like they're projecting Cubs for 60 wins in last place. So that's all I have to say about it.
Nah, we're in agreement with the Cubs. I was gonna say, you just like we said, okay. Even if Rizzo and Bryant give you what you half expect, that team's going to be incrementally better than it was last year. The other interesting team is the Reds, who their general manager should already get GM of the year for finding a team that was willing to take Homer Bailey for anything. So they made
they got out of it.
Yeah, they got Alex Wood and Yasiel Puig, and they've got a bunch of guys on one-year deals, And my question is, and I guess if you ask the guys in the front office, they would say it's a little bit of both. But have the Reds assembled a team here that is all in for a year? Or did they assemble a team of assets to fire sale come July?
I think they assembled a team that could go either way. They've got Nick Senzel coming up, and he will be at the majors at some point. Taylor Trammell's not too far behind him. He is a little bit behind him. They got some interesting guys in the lower minors like Hunter Green. They got a decent minor league system. Scooter Gannett wants an extension. So
he's been begging for an extension.
Yeah, and I mean, he's been one of the top 10 second basemen for 2-3 years now, and, I think he's earned the right to an extension, honestly. And if they lock him up, they'll have a really good infield. As long as Peraza can continue to be that speed demon on the base pass, they have a pretty solid infield, and if Nick Senzel can, move to center field well. I just think the part that scares me is they got Alex Wood, who is good, but he's never really, for a full year, been able to consistently pitch. Sonny Gray, who's been an ace of a staff, but Sonny Gray has taken steps back, and he hasn't been good in a couple of years, so that was almost a shallow acquisition. And Tanner Roark, who is kind of in the same boat as Sonny Gray, except he's just a little bit better at this point. So, I mean, I didn't like their starting pitching. I think I think that they've got guys coming up that are going to be decent, like Hunter Green and Tony Centellion are going to be really good starting pitchers, but right now, I'm not sure how I feel about their starting staff. I think they have the offense, and I think they're going to be competitive and win at least 75 to 85 games. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. They've got a good bench. They've got a deep offense, but Luis Castillo, he has to pitch well. I mean, they're just going to have a lot of things go right on the pitching side. Um, they held on to Raisel Iglesias. Jared Hughes had a really good year last year. Amir Garrett exclusively pitched out of the bullpen last year, which was interesting. So I don't know if they've given up on him in the rotation. Michael Lorenzen is working on it as a two-way player, so they got versatility. So it'll be interesting. I applaud their GM because if they're not in it, the trade deadline, they can trade Scooter Gannett, they can trade Sonny Gray, they can trade Tanner Roark, they can trade Alex Wood, they can trade Matt Kemp. I think they'll hold on to Puig. I really like Puig to kind of break out. Votto was singing his praises, I think, earlier today. I like Puig to really get a chance to play every day there because in the Dodgers he kind of got buried and them trying to win and he didn't get an everyday chance. So they're kind of in the middle of the pack. They didn't do enough to overtake any of these big teams, but they're gonna be pretty much the best fourth place team in baseball.
Well, guess what? I like the Reds rotation better than I like the Brewers.
Yeah, I mean that's fair.
And I actually am, which is why I have them in our league, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. I actually like Sonny Gray to bounce back. I don't think I'm not sitting here with the idea I'm going to get Oakland A Sonny Gray of 4 years ago, with where every team wanted him to anchor a staff. But I think Sonny Gray, who got dealt to the Yankees, and the Yankees basically tried to turn him into something that he was not. I think he can be a number 2 again.
Yeah, and I also think some guys just really, I mean, like I said, we talked about the mental side of baseball earlier. I mean, playing in that type of environment is too much for some people, and that's not a knock on him, but, he wasn't cut out. Javier Vasquez is a good example. He played 2 years in New York 2 separate times, and he stopped. The whole rest of his career, his numbers were a lot better. So I think getting out of there was a good thing for him, like a change of scenery type thing. So, I mean, I wouldn't expect the world from Sonny Gray, and I wouldn't even expect him to return to All-Star form, but he definitely is in line for some sort of improvement, I'd say. So, and that 1 year that Javier Vasquez was a Yankee, he actually made the All-Star team. The only year that he was an All-Star was with the Yankees, but he had a 4.91 ERA. The year before, he had a 3.24. The year after, it went back down to 4.42. And he had a 2.87 ERA. Then he went to New York, had a 5.32 ERA, came back, had a 3.69 ERA. So I compare Sonny Gray like that, where it has that type of effect.
You're old when you remember Javier Vasquez as an Expo. Okay? That's when you know you're old.
I remember him as an Expo, so I'm not old.
All right. Last team in the Central is the Pirates. The Pirates, are now 2 years removed from Andrew McCutchen being the face of their franchise. He went to San Francisco last year. Now he's with the Phillies. The Pirates are obviously in a rebuilding mode right now. They are kind of searching for that next face of the franchise. And really, if you're a Pirate fan coming into the year, you've got guys, in the system coming, Cabrian Hayes is their third baseman of the future. He, you could even see him this year, depending. I know he's in Double-A right now.
Probably at the end of the year.
Yeah. The big puzzle piece for Pittsburgh this year, okay? Ray Searage is their pitching coach, who has just done wonders with guys that have come there, who have kind of been afterthoughts, and he has found, the missing ingredient and turned them into something. Can Ray Searage find the old Chris Archer? That is the number one question in Pittsburgh this year. What Chris Archer is going to come out? Because if Searage does it with Archer, you've got a big piece.
Yeah, and Chris Archer, I've always been a believer in him, and he's moved to the NL, which is positive for him because he gets to face the pitcher. And he's a strikeout guy, so he's got everything going for him as long as he can, he needs to just have better command, basically, and locate and sequence a little bit better because sometimes in the AL, he was just getting hit around, and he was in a very tough division. That trade will always be a head-scratcher because the Pirates kind of went on a little winning streak, and then they're like, you know what, screw it. Tyler Glasnow and Austin Meadows, they've been our top prospects for 2-3 years now. They've been our future. We're getting rid of them. And our first-round pick in Shane Baz from 2 years ago, which I think was a great deal for the Rays, even though they had to give up Archer. So it's going to be a weird deal, and they really need Archer to. I think Archer will become kind of co-aces with Ty on there, but it's going to be a weird deal because he's going to have to continue to live up to that because they've lost a lot in Glasnow, Meadows, and Baz, and Glasnow outperformed Archer in the second half last year, so it would have been better off not making the deal just in the second half based off second half performance. But Archer is a special pitcher, so that's just going to always be a head scratcher of a deal because it looks like the Rays won it, but like on paper you're getting like an ace, a guy who you think could be an ace pitcher. So in a way, it kind of made sense for the Pirates to do at the time. The Pirates, I don't know. It's just going to be that's just a weird thing.
My point
but
is,
their offense is their question mark. And that's what's going to make them a last place team because they don't have anybody besides Stone Martin.
They've got nothing. And the thing is, it's like, yeah, they've got Ty on. But, like, if Chris Archer is Chris Archer, he is now that, he can be the face of your franchise. Tyon is, he's nice, but he's not going to be the face of your franchise. And they need that big piece because if Archer's not going to be that, they're back at square one. Okay, now they've got to find somebody. Pittsburgh isn't a place that can go out and get free agents. An ace isn't going to come there, or they need to find ways to try and bring in talent. Okay, and they've got a couple of nice young pieces in Tyon. They've got Josh Bell at first base, who I think when we talk about first baseman, nobody brings him up, but he's got pop and he's really underrated when we talk about first baseman, especially from fantasy perspective. They've got a couple of pieces here and there, but they need that big piece. Archer can be that, and they need to find it this year if they're going to take a step forward.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, there's just not much to talk about. Felipe Vasquez is an elite reliever, so I got that. And, he from the left-handed side, he's probably the gold standard of left-handed relievers. He's up there with Chapman right now. And I don't think he gets talked about enough. But outside of that, they don't really have much exciting players. I mean, can Jung Ho Kang make the comeback? I mean, he was good for 2 years, but he looked a little rusty in AAA last year. It's just going to be interesting. So,
all right, let's flip to the Central, which will have a lot more teams like the Pirates. Let's start with the team that I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of pushback for, although I'm going to try and give you a little bit. Let's start with the team that will likely win the Central, and that is the Indians. Two big things to talk about with the Indians is, one, we spent the whole offseason talking about won't they trade Corey Kluber. They held on to him, and they're starting the season without Francisco Lindor, their all-star shortstop. How long Lindor will be out, that remains to be seen. Could be a week, could be 3 weeks. That injury happened early in spring training, so that gives them a little bit of leeway. As far as holding on to Kluber, was it the right move? I mean, yeah, because that division is what it is, but the window's closing on Cleveland quickly.
Yeah, I think they know that, and they've got some young guys in their system. I mean, they certainly don't have the worst system in the division, which is a good shape for them to be in. I believe that Kluber being there is the right move because they don't even have to really be a top team in the AL. As long as they win 88, 87 games, they're going to win that division. And then you get in the playoffs, and then you have to face Kluber, you have to face Bauer, you have to face Carrasco, which didn't work last year. But if your team catches, if they catch fire at the right time, and you got that pitching rotation, that team is built for a postseason. You got Lindor, you got Ramirez. Their outfield's a little shaky, but Greg Allen could be the breakout guy this year. Leonis Martin is one of the more underrated all-around players in baseball. They go out and maybe get an outfielder at the trading deadline, and you're in shape for a playoff run. So, I mean, Shane Bieber, he had one of the lowest fielding independent ERAs last year, and they have a really good team. So, I think they went out and they got Brad Hand last year, and their bullpen isn't as bad as a lot of people make it out to be. They got a lot of depth this offseason. They got Who from Tampa. They've got some good arms. So
my thing is, are they going to try and find out whatever happened to Danny Salazar, who would have made that a big four rotation, or have they just completely given up on that and now they're going to try and use him as a power arm in the bullpen?
Well, they have a power four rotation. It's just Mike Clevenger took his spot, and Shane Bieber's the 5. I don't think they need to mess with that rotation. They had 4 guys who struck out 200, and the other guy who didn't strike out 200 didn't have a full season, which was Shane Bieber, and I just told you he's fielding independent pitching stat. So I don't think they really need to mess with Salazar. I think they could turn him into – they have Brad Hand as the lefty. They could turn Salazar into a shutdown stopper, closer. He might not be the closer, but he could work kind of the role that Andrew Miller used to work for them, where he came in that tight situation late at the end of the game, and he can really fill that role for Terry Francona because he's got a good arm. So, and he could easily be switched back to a starter at any point in his career. But I think this year it's probably smarter to use him as a reliever. So,
the one team in this division that people will try and give you some sort of argument that can push this Indian team for the division is, surprisingly, the Twins. However, I'm going to give you the pushback. Byron Buxton is a bust. Okay? First of all, he's hurt already. And second of all, I'm tired of waiting on Byron Buxton to come. Okay? It's just like that ship has sailed. And, Sano is what Sano is. I don't think Sano's ever going to be this huge power, breakout star guy. They've got the rotation is, there's just not enough there for me.
I mean, I like them as an 85-win team. They're a lot like the Reds. They went out and made a lot of moves this offseason. That's what I'm going to touch on real quick. They got Jonathan Scope. They got they got Nelson Cruz, which was a big one.
Okay, but Jonathan Scope, which Jonathan Scope did they get? Did they get the Jonathan Scope of last year who fell off a clip, or did they get the Jonathan Scope who used to be one of the most underrated second basemen in all of baseball?
I'd say somewhere in between would be a realistic expectation. Basically, because he's just, I don't think he's as bad as he was last year. They got CJ Cron. They were really busy this offseason. They have one of the most interesting guys in Williams' studio in baseball. He's got the long hair. He's had an interesting career arc, and he does not swing and miss. The guy has, when he swings, he makes contact. It's very odd. He went I think over 100 pitches last year without missing a baseball. He hit it. I like Byron Buxton. I think if they hit him ninth, he's got no pressure. He brings value to the table as a defender. He won a Gold Glove already. He's only 25 again, same age as Addison Russell. So, I mean, I've seen him live. He's got power. He can go opposite way. I've seen him do a lot of amazing things. The guy is the fastest guy in baseball. So, I think last year they wanted that extra year of team control. So, once he got off to that cool start and got hurt, they just shut him down for the end of the year. He's just got to stay healthy because he's so reckless in center field, which, I mean, that's just the way he plays. And I think Sano is going to hit 40 home runs one day, but he's never going to be like the complete all-around player you thought he was. Jorge Polanco was interesting. He was one of the best players in the second half after Eddie Rosario was one of the best players in the first half. So, it'll be interesting to see those two guys and how they do. I like their lineup. The thing that scares me is their pitching. Jose Barrios, he has a legitimate chance to be an ace still. He's only 24, and he shows that stuff. He is the closest thing we're ever going to get to Jose Fernandez for the time being. He's just got that electric, fastball, that electric stuff. He's going to, dominate games. I think we're going to see a lot of good things from Jose Barrios for years to come. And in the bullpen, they have Taylor Rogers, who's kind of the left-handed king of the slider. And the slider's kind of making a comeback, so I could see him making a splash. But they don't really have the pitching right now. I could see the Twins in a few years being really good because they have Royce Lewis, Kirilloff, Greater coming up. They have Steven Gonzalez. They have some really promising players in their minor league system, but they need to work on that pitching. And that pitching, Gibson, Odorizzi, Pineda, Perez, it's not the worst thing you could ever see, but it's not going to win you a division. And in the bullpen, Blake Parker's your closer. Trevor May's your setup man. I mean, outside of Taylor Rogers, I'm not a real big fan. Trevor May, he had a really good second half, and I kind of like him. But outside of May and Rogers, there's not a lot to like in this bullpen, honestly. So, they're really sparse on pitching, and I think that's going to be their downfall because they have a lot of depth. I like the Marwin Gonzalez signing. Forgot to even mention that. Max Kepler, he seems to be he's not going to be a spectacular all-star, but he seems to be a solid everyday player. Jason Castro fits that catching where he can, frame and be good. So, they're not going to win the division by any means. They can trade some of these guys at the trading deadline, probably. They're going to win 85 games just because they're in such a crappy division. So, they're kind of like the Reds of the AL. They made a lot of moves this offseason, but it's not going to amount to a playoff position.
Gonzalez,
but I disagree with you on Buxton.
You brought up Gonzalez. I don't know. He might catch the back end of the rotation to start the season. He was one of their, and I think he still is. I don't think he graduated yet. He was one of their top prospects in the system, and when he came up last year, it was bad. I mean, most guys when they come up, even if it's rough, they show you, flashes here and there. I didn't see a flash from him at all.
Well, it was the same thing with Jose Barrios when he came up. And the thing about it is they used Gonzalez as they used that opener and then they would put Gonzalez in the second inning. They did that a couple times. So that might have affected him a little bit because, he's not used to that. But now they're kind of forward thinking. They hired Rocco Baldelli, the younger choice. They got rid of Paul Molitor, which, at the time I didn't get why they were getting rid of Paul Molitor. But it just seems to me like they're kind of moving more and more towards that sabermetric type deal. And, there's a lot to like with this team, though, moving forward. We'll see what Gonzalez gets. My point, though, in 14 starts, 58 in the third innings of his rookie season, Jose Barrios had an ERA of 8.02, fielding independent of 6.20, and a whip of 1.87, giving up almost 2 home runs per 9 innings pitched, 5.5 walks. So now he's cut that walk rate in half. His strikeout rates went up. His home run and hit rates have went way down, and his whip is at a 1.14. So we're looking at a guy who has made mass improvements over 2 years from when he got to the majors. It might just be a thing where in the minors they're not getting their guys prepared enough because Jose Barrios just dominated the minors. That year he made 14 starts despite his ERA because he had nothing left to prove in AAA. So, I mean, that might be an issue within their organization that they're fixing now when they fired their staff. So,
yeah. All right, let's get to the bottom of the barrel, your team coming up shortly. But before them, let's go with the baby Tigers, because that's what I'm calling them, because that's what this is this year for the Tigers. It's let's get everybody up, and let's see what these guys are going to do. Here, we know Eloy's coming. That's obvious. The big thing I think for the White Sox is this year is, I mean, I don't want to say it's make or break because he's still kind of young, but can we get something out of Moncada? I mean,
yeah.
He was the guy, and it's just, it hasn't come.
Nope. And on the pitching side, the same things for Giolito. Giolito showed some improvements in the second half, but they really need these returns, these trades to, pay off. And I know we were both devastated with Kopech because we both really believe in him. He's like the next big thing, I think, pitching-wise coming up. I mean, he's got such good stuff. He's got such a good head on his shoulders that I think he's really going to put it all together. But, this year they really need to see that out of Giolito and Moncada. I wouldn't say it's their make-or-break year, but definitely they need to see something out of it. The thing about Moncada is he really just needs to start hitting. They don't expect him to hit for power. They just want him to be a top-of-the-order guy. A real big game changer at the top of the order is kind of, what you're seeing or, what you expect from Moncada. But it really hasn't shown. He's only 23. Last year was his Last year was his first full season from the majors, but you saw no improvements. In fact, you saw a little step back. His OPS went from 750 to 714. So it went from slightly above league average to slightly below. He didn't hit for he had 17 home runs with 32 doubles, 6 triples, but over the year, that wasn't really any more power than he had hit for in his 54 games in 2017. His batting average only went up 4 points, and he took overall. He didn't get on base as much, so his eye went down a little bit. But she had 67 walks, so we're talking about a guy who, if he really can start to hit, I mean, you got a really good player. So I mean, it's all there for him. He just needs to make the adjustments, and I think he will start to do it. But I mean, there's something to be built on his September. He hit 301, 369, 398. He lost all his power, but he started to hit a little more for average. So if we can combine his, second half where, in the second half he hit 331, 320, 359. But if we can combine the power that he showed in August with the hitting ability he showed in September, you got something that you ordered.
They also need to get Carlos Rondon right. 2 years ago, I thought he was going to be like this real big top of the rotation guy for them, and then he's just fallen off.
From a scouting standpoint, they have guys who wow scouts and they have talent off the charts, but they really need to show it. And some of these guys have shown that, Giolito really lowered his walk rate in the second half, and he finished worst qualified ERA guy, ERA in the majors. But when you look at his second half, he really started to show improvements. That's what you need from your guys. You just need them to start to show some sort of improvement, make adjustments. So Rodon I'll give him a little bit of a break because he was hurt so bad. He really just needs to stay healthy. And then Eloy's going to come up, and you know what you're going to get out of Abreu. He's one of the most consistent hitters. Yolmer Sanchez is just kind of a stopgap at this point. Who else do these guys have? Tim Anderson's 2020, but he takes away from his value just because he's just not that good of a hitter, not disciplined at the plate. But he hit 2020 last year, so it'll be interesting to see how these guys shape up, and then you're going to start to see. Eloy, he would be the rookie of the year if not for Vlad, but you're going to see that him and Vlad are going to be that Juan Soto, Ronald Acuna with a lot less speed this year. They're just going to be a lot better hitters, basically. Yeah. So,
basically, they're banking on Eloy to come up, be that Acuna Soto, and automatically step into the face of the franchise. That's everything that they expect Eloy to be.
A lot of stopgaps. The interesting guy for them is Manny Banuelos. He was one of those under the radar, like low key. He hasn't pitched in the major signings, but they signed him for the major league bullpen. He's out of options, and it seems to me is that he's going to make the opening day roster. So we'll see if Manny Banuelos, a former top 100 prospect, we're talking close to 10 years ago, a top 100 prospect. We'll see if he can, make a name for himself as a bullpen arm, because they got a lot of veterans in that bullpen. We'll see if Banuelos can kind of make a name as a guy who can, really do well. I like the Calvin Herrera signing. Alex Colomé is 30 now, so he's just nice veteran presence. They got a lot of depth. You got to see what you can get out of, Adam Engel. He can finally start to hit because he's one of the better defensive center fielders. But overall, I think I have them finishing in third. I have them to take that step up this year. They finished in fourth last year, lost 100 games. I see them making a 10-game improvement. So,
all right. Now let's get to the bottom of the bottom. And let's go to your boys, the Tigers. Miggy's there, still playing out the contract. He's coming off an injury. I actually think you'll get more of, not Miggy, but a Miggy now year from him. He's healthy, things like that.
He wasn't doing too bad before he got hurt. He was hitting about 300, and he had 3 home runs for the first month.
I still think Miggy is productive. And now that he's healthy, I still think he'll give you some. But, the big thing, and I'll let you dive in on your team, but from an outsider's perspective, the big thing for me, and I would assume it's a big concern for you, and it's the tie that, the connection that we have is from 2 years ago. Okay? We both still have the guys from that trade. And they both will not be on the team for opening day. I've got Cespedes and that contract and those heels, which just don't want to work apparently, and God knows if I'll see them. And you've got Fulmer, who, when that trade was made, we handed away the Rookie of the Year, and everybody thought the next big thing in a rotation. And now he's being shut down, and nobody has an answer as to when or why.
Yeah, and actually, one of the new up-and-coming projection systems called the BAT had him as one of the most underdrafted pitchers this year, because when he's healthy, got to figure a couple things out. You still got to get a couple things in order. But overall, I think a lot of the negatives you see from him come from the injuries. He's not healthy. It's a little bit scary, to watch, especially a pitcher, which is, a little bit different than a position player. But, you have to tie him and Cespedes together because of the trade. But as a pitcher, he's chronically injured. He felt his arm. He basically had an arthritic arm. He felt ringing in his arm, which is not anything you ever want to hear from a pitcher. It's a little bit scary, and you almost think that the Tigers really wait too long to deal him because he's almost not even in the future plans for the Tigers. Now you got your, you've got your front, three guys, Perez, Mize, and Manning, and then you've got Bo Burrows, Fado, Funkhauser. You got a lot of guys who can fill out the rest of that rotation. So, Fulmer almost doesn't even play into the future plans much past 2 or 3 years, but you could still trade Fulmer. He's talented. It just, is he going to stay healthy? And I'm scared because the answer right now is no. He cannot stay healthy. He's got lower mechanic issues. He's got upper mechanic issues. His arm's buzzing. I mean, I don't know what to take from it other than this guy's really injury prone. And if I were a team, I'd be scared to trade for him. I think the bright spot in the rotation right now is Matt Boyd. And I also think that Daniel Norris, he's not had the results in the majors, but he's another guy who he finally looks to be healthy. And he had a couple freak accidents. So if Norris can do good, he's got to watch this year. But Matt Boyd's kind of the de facto, at this point, ace because Fulmer cannot stay healthy. And Fulmer is their best and most talented pitcher if he could, but I'm just as nervous as you are on the inside. So,
and that deal, the impact at the beginning was good for everybody. Cespedes took the Mets on the World Series run. Fulmer was AL Rookie of the Year. Everybody was happy. It's been the aftermath that has been downhill on both ends of that deal. The guy you brought up, Casey Mize, was their draft pick this year. And they had him in spring training there for a little bit, and he was every bit as advertised. Just drafted, it's usually hitters that kind of get through the minors real quick, and you can see them kind of same year. You don't really see that for pitchers. But considering the state that Detroit is in, can Mize possibly make that sort of rise that quickly?
Yeah. Well, I expect Mize to be. Actually, I'm doing a write-up. I'm trying to do this for my little blog because I've seen a lot of the Tigers prospects, obviously. Mize I haven't actually got to see live, but I got to see a lot of video and stuff of him. So I wrote Mize up because he's the #1 prospect. I said, his fastball is not sitting at Verlander Kopech type velocity, but he has a good fastball. He has great command. He has a very sound mechanics. He hides the ball decently. He's got a good delivery. There's really not much that you can gripe about him. He's got a fourth pitch in the slider. He's got a cutter to throw with the splitter. The splitter is just as good as his fastball. And he's in an organization where he might be able to seek help from Jack Morris, who was one of the main splitter guys. I said, when I was trying to find a comp for him, it was hard because he's a tall, skinny guy, so that's not hard. But not a lot of guys throw the splitter like him. So I said, he could kind of almost be like a modern day Jack Morris with all the modern aspects of it. Where nowadays you got better mechanics, and, guys aren't getting hurt, or anything. So I like to compare him that way, and if he can be that for the Tigers, that's huge. But yeah, I don't have any doubts about him. He's one of the lower risk prospects, honestly. He got to pitch in the SEC against a high level of competition. He pitched on Team USA. His stats: he did not give up a run when he pitched with Team USA in about 9 innings. That's top competition that he's faced, and he seems as if everything about him is good, and he hasn't given you a reason to not believe he can be an ace pitcher and a top 10 pitcher, much like Steven Strasburg or Garrett Cole, who are former college right-handed first rounders. So that's what I have to say about him. But they have a lot. I like Matt Manning too, so don't sleep on Matt Manning. That guy, he's going to be the flashy pitcher out of those two. He's got a high, he could be more up and down, but he's the type of guy who could have those 15 strikeout games and stuff as Matt Manning, and he will start the year in Double-A, and both those guys might finish in Triple-A, Mize and Manning, if everything goes to plan.
Detroit, as you laid out, obviously has the young arms. Bat-wise, what do they have? I mean, for one, why is Nick Castellanos still on this team?
Well, Castellanos, we know he's not the best defender wherever you put him. And Miguel Cabrera is going to DH, and they got Kristen Stewart coming up. They have a really interesting offense all around this year. I'll run through it real quick after I talk on Castellanos. So Castellanos, he wants an extension now. They realize the market for him isn't as good because teams want guys who can defend. And sabermetrically, he's only worth about 2 wins, but he's got the highest line drive rate, in baseball, and he's been consistent about that. He's got a picturesque swing that scouts love. He's probably going to hit for a little more power. It wouldn't be surprising if he reached 30, 35 even home runs. So he's a good guy to have in the middle of the order. He just doesn't have a position. I think ideally you move Castellanos to first base. You give him an extension because you don't have to overpay him, and I'm sure Castellanos isn't. He likes it in Detroit by all means. By any interview I've ever seen him give, and I've seen him be friendly with the fans, and it seems like he really took on that leadership role after Miguel Cabrera got hurt last year as leader in the clubhouse. So I think he likes it here, and he'd like to be part of their next competitive team. He was part of that 2014 playoff team. He actually hit a home run in Game 2 of the ALDS. He is a guy they could build around. So I just think they need to move him to first, and they need to basically, if they get an extension, it'll be interesting because a lot of it hinges over on the left field side, and if Kristen Stewart can be handle left field, because if not, Kristen Stewart might have to move to DH, and you might have to move Miguel Cabrera to first base. So even with Victor retiring, there's not a lot of flexibility in their, in their corner positions. But Kristen Stewart, you'll get a full year from him in left field, and you'll get to see. I said his ceiling is a Chris Davis type player. He's a very average hitter at the major league level. He doesn't play good defense. He might get stuck at a DH type position, but he can play the corner outfield positions okay. And his main calling card is his power, and he has a lot of it. So, ideally he could be a 40 home run guy and end up like a Chris Davis type player where he hits 250 every year. I said he's Chris Davis with a little more hitting ability, a little less power, so anywhere from 35 to 40 home runs. And he was exciting down in Toledo last year, so it'll be good to see what we can see from him. Jacoby Jones, he's got defense, he's got speed, he's got power. He needs to hit. I've seen him improve a little bit. He used to swing at anything. Now he's a little more patient. He had a really good April last year, but he fell off. So he really needs to put it together. So it'll be an interesting year to see what we get from him. You got Nico Goodrum, who's going to be moving around the infield, and Dawel Lugo, who will get another chance playing around the infield this year. So it'll be interesting to see what we can get from them. They're not sure things by any account, but they both have potential. Miguel Cabrera is going to be that first base DH, and Goodrum you'll see at first base a little more. Josh Harrison will be a guy they flip at the deadline. He's going to be a table setter on offense. Will be a good guy to have in the clubhouse the first half. So shortstop Jordy Mercer.
Here's the question. We keep running through teams and keep asking this question. So right now, as he starts to fade out, Miggy is still the face of the Tigers.
Yeah. Who's
the next face of the Tigers?
I'd say right now Castellanos, but I mean if you trade him or deal him, it's got to be Candelario or Stewart. And Candelario had a really promising year last year, and I think a lot of people are sleeping on him in fantasy because he's got 30 home run potential, and he's a Carlos Santana-esque type hitter. He's a little bit better with the bat, a little less patient, but he took a decent amount of walks last year. He's the bat type of guy, and he seems to be the Tigers' third baseman of the future. So we'll have to see what we get out of Candelario. But if Castellanos is gone and Stewart, struggles a little bit, Candelario has shown at the big league level he can at least be productive. They got a full year from him last year, so he'll be the type of guy that will step in as the face of the franchise right now. But I mean, you got Isaac Paredes in the minors, and it might be Casey Mize coming up kind of like a Justin Verlander and taking City by storm, and he'll be the face of the franchise. So it really just depends. I was going to say Jordy Mercer. He's below average. I was really impressed by that signing, but he'll fill a stopgap for a year until Isaac Paredes and Willie Castro have a chance to get up. But Candelario, that on that right side of the end, or that left side of the infield, it's going to be interesting because he's going to be the big guy, and he's another guy to watch this year to see if he can show any signs of improvement because he'll be a big guy. Then catching-wise, to finish it off, just kind of around the diamond, they have Grayson Griner, who I like as a backup type of catcher, so we'll see if he does well. Then they have Jake Rogers coming up, who one of the best defensive players in the minors, so he seems to be the catcher of the future. So, and then in the bullpen, there's not much. There's just a lot of potential, but Joe Jimenez is going to be a future closer, and they're going to trade Shane Green at the trading deadline. So let's hope to God Shane Green is productive for anybody that's going to get him sake and for the Tigers' sake so they can get something for him. So Shane Green has good stuff when he's on. So, but he can be shaky when he's off. So overall, the Tigers are going to have another fourth-place finish. They're not as bad as the Royals. They have more major league assets right now and a better farm system, even though the Royals aren't with complete no prospects. But, the Tigers have a little more in that farm system.
Well,
the Tigers have the best collection of arms besides the Braves and the
well,
Miners.
good.
So.
You rolled into the Royals, and the Royals, who were going to be the worst team in this division anyway, took a big step back because of the injury to who is basically the face of that franchise now because he's the only one left, in Sal Perez. Sal Perez needs Tommy John surgery. He's done for the year. And you know they've traded off, well not traded off, but they've lost everybody here over the last couple of years. You know, Hosmer's not there anymore, Kane's not there anymore, Moustakas isn't there anymore. You know, Sal Perez is the last link to that World Series team, and without him there, it's just a cast of, you know, a whole lot of people that are trying to put something together, which isn't going to amount to much.
Yeah. Sorry, you broke up a little bit there. I think it's my Wi-Fi. But basically, the gist of what you were saying, I think, was that they don't have a lot that's going to amount to much, right?
Yeah. Without, I mean, Sal Perez is the last link that they had. I mean, after when you take him away, I mean, what do they've got to build on? There's not a whole lot there.
Yeah. So for them, Alex Gordon's still there. He's a veteran presence, but he's fallen way off. I mean,
Ryan O'Hearn had a nice year last year. Okay, you know,
yeah.
But Danny Duffy, you know.
Yeah, I mean, Danny Duffy's, I don't know. They're pitching. The biggest guy I want to say to give a shout out to, and Ryan O'Hearn. Definitely keep an eye out for him. He came up at first, and you know he's not going to be the face of the franchise or anything, but he has a lot of power. He's going to get a chance. You know, I like him. I like who else did I like Brett Phillips, even though this roster resource doesn't have him on the opening day roster. They have Whit Merrifield and Adalberto Mondesi, who are, you know, speedy guys, good hitters, and Mondesi showed why he was a #1 prospect in their organization a few years past year. Jorge Soler finally took that step forward, but they really only have 4 hitters that I could see having some sort of impact this year. That's Ryan O'Hearn, Jorge Soler, Merrifield, Mondesi. And the only 2 guys who you're confident are going to be for sure guys that are going to be, you know, above average are Merrifield and Mondesi. You know, I like the Martin Maldonado sign for them because he's a guy they can trade at the trading deadline. You know, it's going to be interesting because Brad Keller showed a lot last year, but is Brad Keller for real? You know, Jake Junis is an interesting guy to watch. Danny Duffy is hurt right now. He's got shoulder tightness, so he's doubtful for opening day. So you don't know what you're going to get from Duffy. You know, they don't have the best. You know, they drafted Brady Singer, but in the minors they don't have the most promising pitching. And you know, they got some guys like Nicky Lopez, MJ Melendez, Chase Villo, Nick Prado. I know I'm forgetting somebody.
They need to hit the reset button completely. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, they're at the bottom of the barrel as it is, but like you said, they've got nothing up top and they've got nothing at the bottom. They built that World Series team from the ground up. They need to redo it in a hurry.
Yeah.
I mean, the last thing you want to be
Salvador
is bad at the top and bad at the bottom, because then you've got no room to grow, and that's where the Royals are right now. I mean, when your top prospect in your system doesn't crack the top 100, you've got problems.
Yeah, they have a lot of interesting, you know, guys probably in that 101 to 200 range. Some of them could break out, but they need those top guys. Like the Tigers have Mize and Paredes and Matt Manning, and then, you know, they have below that they even have Burrows, and they have Daz Cameron and Jake Rogers as guys that are interesting. The Royals only have that second level of players where they're like Daz Cameron and Rogers, where they got interesting players like Nick Prado and, you know, MJ Melendez, and Brady Singer, but they're not top 100 guys right now. So only a couple of those guys might make, you know, an impact. And the Royals always prided themselves on having a good farm system, so it's surprising to see from them. But there's really not much to see with them. Like I said, I mean, Jorge Soler broke out. You know, Merrifield and Mondesi are pretty good. You know, keep your eye on like guys like Brad Keller and Brett Phillips, and really keep your eye on Ryan O'Hearn because he might be that sleeper 30 home run guy in your fantasy league, one of those guys who could do well. But I like him at first base for them. I really think he's one of their better players. He's my guy to keep an eye on for them. He really had a big impact. coming up last year, and I liked what I saw when I saw him in Detroit. So, are we going to move into fantasy now?
Yeah, I'd say sorry to Carl, but he already knew that the Royals were in bad shape, so I'm not telling him anything he didn't already know. All right, so let's get to our fantasy league and just this pure, I don't even know how to word it, just
nobody wants Mike Trout.
Lunacy that is going on. So last week we talked about how Mike Trout had already been traded, and we went into that deal and how it made no sense. But in the past week, he hasn't been traded once. He's been traded twice.
Yeah, he has. He got traded for Jose Altuve.
Wait, hold on. You're skipping ahead. You're skipping ahead. Let's talk about the first trade.
I'm sorry. I got moved. Oh, Altuve was the second trade?
Yes. So the first time Trout got moved, okay, which was the second time, okay, the first time we talked about last week. Okay, so the second time he got moved was him and Jake Odorizzi, who we talked about on the Twins here earlier, for Javier Baez, okay, a good start. But then Yangervis Solarte and Ramon Loreno, who is a prospect for Oakland.
Yeah, and what was the deal that got vetoed? Wasn't there a deal that got vetoed?
No, nothing got vetoed.
Okay, I thought
this deal should have got vetoed.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually reading something in Sports Illustrated's fantasy baseball art or fantasy baseball special. I just picked it up at the bookstore the other day because I'm broke and I only watch here because I buy the Forecaster and Prospectus and stuff. But basically, they had a roundtable discussion. One of the questions was Mike Trout versus the field, because there's been a lot of discussion about that. Because Mike Trout, he's only been the number one fantasy player like one of the last 4 years. But the thing about it is Mike Trout is always consistently like the top 10 guy. Other than the year he got hurt, he might have been right outside the top 10. But you know what you're getting in Mike Trout, and he is the most sure thing, and he is the best player on, on his best day, he's the best player. So he's the number one guy. And that was the only argument anybody could make, was saying, well, Mookie Betts has been right there with him for 2 years now, and last year he won the MVP and was probably slightly better than Trout. But, I mean, a lot of people were just saying, Trout's still the number one, even if Mookie Betts is kind of closing the gap a little bit. So I tend to agree with that. So if you're getting, anybody, Jose Altuve and Javier Baez are end of the first round, middle, or top of the second round, middle of the second round. So you need to really, really, if you're getting Jake Odorizzi, then you need to basically be getting Mookie Betts and Jake Odorizzi. That's the only way I could justify it. Maybe you're really shallow on starting.
I'm glad you keep bringing up Mookie Betts, because now let's get to the third trade of Mike Trout, and the second of this week, which started as Trout for Mookie Betts, which, as you said, you could make an argument makes sense. It is the second part of this trade in which I can't understand, and hence would have made me want to veto it. Okay, so let's take out the Trout for Betts. We can call that a wash if you want. Okay? Explain to me how Patrick Corbin is worth D. Gordon.
Yeah, I don't understand that, other than if you really need speed and value speed, because D. Gordon is a speed demon, but Patrick Corbin's just better at this point. So, I mean, he's just better at fantasy. I mean, I got Patrick Corbin as more of a top 60 guy, top 65 guy, whereas D. Gordon's more around that 100 ranking, I'd say. So, I mean, there's a vast difference there.
More importantly, in this league that we are in, okay, pitching as a whole, let alone starting pitching, okay, for a lot of teams is scarce. Okay, there are a few teams that are pretty set at pitching. Other than that, people are kind of scrounging for pitching, let alone top-tier pitching, which you can argue Patrick Corbin is a top-tier pitcher. So, if you're going to get a Patrick Corbin type, I'm sorry, you would think the price would be heavier than a D. Gordon.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't even understand that, because if you need speed, you just go grab somebody later. I mean, I think Billy Hamilton was taken way too high ADP-wise, but, I mean, there are deep sleepers, like I said, Jacoby Jones we went over. You can get steals from him. He's going to get playing time. He's going to get 15 steals. But you out of Byron Buxton, who's going a lot later than D. Gordon, and you get to keep Patrick Corbin, who is a top-tier pitching guy, especially in a deeper league with 14 teams. Patrick Corbin could be a best pitcher, your best pitcher, and I'd believe you because, it's not that far outside of the realm of possibility for him to be a top 14, one of the 14 best pitchers in baseball. So
let me put it this way, okay? The Trout and, the Trout and Corbin or the Trout and Gordon for Betts and Corbin deal was the closest thing to a fair deal of the three that we've gotten.
And still Trout, I still think we'd agree Trout is the number one, Betts is the number two. So it's not even like, if you switch Corbin and D. Gordon, it might make a little bit of sense on the side they're on because you're close a little bit. But the guy basically got 90 cents on the dollar twice.
Yes. So that's the closest thing we got. Okay. And what it's doing is, okay, I've got Acuna who is arguably, depending on how you want to view it, if somebody's going to tell you that Trout isn't number one in a dynasty league, they'll tell you Acuna is. Okay, yeah. I mean that's the argument right now. And what it's doing is, for somebody who wants to come down the road and ask me for Acuna, it's making my value look like I'm crazy because Trout's getting traded for nothing.
Yeah. I don't get it.
Okay, the way I view it, which is the way it should have been viewed, is if you want a Mike Trout Acuna type, I'm getting 3 to 4 top high-end pieces.
Yeah, I agree. You shouldn't treat it any different than a general manager would treat it. I mean, if you're trading Mike Trout in real life, you know that they're going to go to a team like San Diego and say, all right, well, we want Fernando Tatis, we want Logan Allen, we want, Francisco Mejia, and we want
Mackenzie Gore.
Somebody else. Yeah, I mean, there you go.
I mean, it's the same situation.
Hudson Potts.
It's the same It's the same situation I have with Tatis. I have somebody asking me about Tatis. Okay, I'm not giving up the number 2 prospect in baseball for anything less than 2 pieces.
Yeah, I mean, you're giving me, and one of them has to be high end, because the only straight up deal you can make for Tatis, I would say, is maybe Jimenez, maybe Guerrero, and maybe Nick Senzel. Those would be the 3 ways I could see you doing it.
You know what? Eloy and Vlad, okay, I'm not doing Senzel.
That's even fair. I mean, that's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, but to me, Senzel's ceiling is not in the range of those other 3.
Yeah, that's fair to disagree on that point, but I think we have the same idea overall. So, yeah.
Basically, what we've come up with here in the last 10 minutes is that us in this league making a trade will be difficult because we're dealing with people that just don't understand anything.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that. It's not even my most serious league. I have 2 money leagues, so this one's a fun dynasty league. I can be in a dynasty league. We can use
By the way, I'm still upset about that. You think I'd get an invite to a money league?
They're full, man. One of the money leagues is, they're both through my dad because I don't make friends outside of. I don't make friends that like baseball.
I hear you.
I mean, one of them's with my dad, and he grew up with the guy, and then he writes for the Fort Worth Star Telegram, and we actually play with Jeff Wilson, I'm a writer, and then so that one's always full, and then the other one, my dad was just his work friends, and then they got a couple of their kids involved. So
hey, I tried to wrangle up about half this league for a money league, and all these people are too afraid to put money on it. So, but then again, when you see trades like this, I'm happy we're not in a money league because I'd have to veto them.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I think, man, I'm a lot smarter than this guy, but in a way, I'm like, oh, this guy's getting a really good deal. So
yeah,
that's not good. So yeah.
And the season hasn't even. We're still 2 weeks away from the season. God knows what's going to happen
for the show. So, and it's fun. So.
All right, next week we will break down the West. And we will give you our predictions on awards and World Series. And I'm sure we'll bring that back in a few months and see how bad we were with that. So
yeah, and I'm sure some news will happen. So we'll be able
and I'm sure some more idiotic
Yeah.
trades will happen because maybe Trout will get traded 2 more times in the next week.
Yeah. Well, I was just talking current events, but yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, I doubt Trout's going to get traded at least 1 more time. So.
Yeah, you got to think so. All right. Until then, for Nik Jarvinen, I'm Dan Siegel. This has been the Pitch Out. As always, you can get at us on Twitter. I am at Dan Siegel Uncut.
And then I'm sorry, I'm Jar9 and then he's Daniel Siegel Uncut. So or is it just Dan Siegel Uncut?
It's just Dan. We don't have to get
Dan Siegel Uncut.
I was saying we don't have to get that professional on him. All right. Until next week, we'll catch you all later.